With the Nintendo Switch 2, we are about to enter a brand new era for Nintendo, and that obviously includes Pokemon. And I would be lying if I said the Pokemon era of Switch wasn't a mixed bag. I mean, we started off here, and we're now here. Like, to an outside perspective, that wouldn't make any sense. So, what are we going to be expecting when it comes to Pokemon on the Switch 2? And are we going to be stuck in this cycle of bugs and glitches and whatever this is? Like, who invited the Dunsparce to be a Pokemon, bro? Before I actually talk about what I think we can expect for the Switch 2 in Pokemon, I want to talk about why I think the Switch era ultimately wasn't the greatest thing ever, and I think it comes down to mainly one thing, and that's time. If you look at Pokemon, it's far more than just the video games. You have the anime, the TCG, and most importantly, the merchandise. The thing that made Pokemon the giant brand juggernaut it is today. And because we have this merchandise, we need to sell that merchandise. And what's the best way to make new merchandise? Make new Pokemon. And who makes the new Pokemon? Game Freak, whenever they make a new generation of the series. So for a while we were stuck in this 3-year cycle for every generation. Obviously Generation 9 is a bit different because it would make absolutely no sense for Pokemon's 10th generation to release on its 29th anniversary this year in 2025 as opposed to its 30th anniversary in 2026. Like, that's just a advertising, marketing kind of genius strategy. Gen 10 in the 30th year of the franchise, like, it just makes sense. But most of the time, we are limited and restricted to this 3-year cycle. And I feel like that doesn't give Game Freak nearly enough time to work on the next generation of Pokemon, especially considering every generation has multiple mainline games from Game Freak. I mean, if you look at Generation 8, we had Sword and Shield and Legends Arceus. If you look at Generation 9, we have Scarlet and Violet and Legends ZA. The entirety of Game Freak isn't solely working on one project, which wouldn't be a problem if they weren't a small development team, and it's been made very clear that they do not know how to handle heavy, big AAA products when they are so used to working on a handheld. And I do think that is the other really big main contributor to why Pokemon on the Switch was kind of iffy, and that's because Game Freak is very much so used to working on underpowered handheld consoles. I mean, they went from the 3DS to the Nintendo Switch, and while you could say, oh, it's not a big gap in quality, Pokemon has been pretty much solely on these handheld consoles, and now they have to go like 2 generations up, and they have to meet this super high fan expectation that the games are going to look absolutely beautiful. I'm talking Breath of the Wild, Xenoblade Chronicles levels. And am I saying the games should not be that? No, I do think that Pokemon should be looking that good, should be at that quality, but you also have to put into the perspective of the developers, and you really have to understand that they did not have time to really experiment and learn this console. They were thrusted into it by the suits and higher executives because they needed that new Pokemon generation so they could sell more merchandise. I think that's the biggest reason why this game series is suffering at the moment, and I think that it really does seem like they're finally starting to realize some of their shortcomings, but at the same time, it's still a very, very messed up kind of situation, and I think what a lot of people need to start doing is they need to start separating the developers from the executives. And I'm not talking about just the executives at the Pokemon Company. I'm also talking about Nintendo, and I'm also talking about Game Freak. Talking about the higher-ups at Game Freak that are working with these executives and telling these developers they need to get this demand in. Because the developers, you can see the passion behind a lot of the different games on the Switch. I mean, you look at Scarlet and Violet, for example. Obviously, on the outside, it looks like an ugly, buggy mess. but you can see the passion and the vision they had for that game, with the 3 storylines, with the open world, with the school setting. They were trying to do something new, trying to do something innovative, and they had a very good vision for the game. And I think that if Scarlet and Violet had maybe 1 to 2 more years of development, it would have came out looking awesome and fantastic. But like I said, the higher-ups were never gonna let that happen. The fact that they even let the game release in the state it was in is just an absolute disgrace. And honestly, I don't blame Game Freak at all for that. Do you think Game Freak wanted to release their game looking like that? I mean, maybe they do. Maybe I'm totally wrong, and Game Freak is this evil corporate executive company, but I just don't think that's the case. I think Game Freak generally wants to make interesting and engaging experiences, and I think they're just in a really crappy situation. Alright, so now that I've yapped for a couple minutes about why, in my opinion, Pokemon kind of failed on the Switch one. I mean, not failed, it's like the most money it's ever made in terms of the games, but like, why it failed in terms of like quality and fan expectations. Now let's talk about the Switch 2. And I think this is a really interesting conversation because the Switch 2 has finally kind of caught up to the other consoles. I mean, yes, it's not as powerful as a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X. It's not meant to be. It's probably about the level of a PS4, PS4 Pro, but it's running games like Cyberpunk 2020... Fuck. It's running games like Cyberpunk 2077, Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. There's big games on here that look amazing, look fantastic. So where does that leave Pokemon? Well, we've already kind of gotten a glimpse as to what we can expect from Pokemon on the Switch 2 with the Switch 2 edition for Pokemon Legends ZA. And if you look at this trailer, the difference between this version and the Switch version is already night and day, man. I mean, it runs better, it looks more polished. Does it look like the best game ever? No. But it's running. Isn't that a start, guys? Oh my god, dude. But yeah, it looks like the Switch 2 can at least run Pokemon games to the point where they're gonna be playable, and beyond playable, they're gonna feel smooth. I think that's something the 3DS era and the Switch era of Pokemon kind of lacked, was that smooth gameplay for Pokemon. If you go back to Generation 5, the combat system was just absolutely elite. It felt so fast, so fluid. It just felt really good to get into a Pokemon battle. And I mean, on the 3DS and the Switch, a lot of Pokemon battles feel very hollow. They feel kind of slow. Well, I think the only exception being Legends Arceus. I think whatever they did for that was great. Keep doing that. Put that in Generation 10. Please, those battles felt awesome. But I think that with a more powerful console, we are going to see higher levels of fluidity and fidelity, and I think the games, even if they don't look the best, because in my opinion, Pokemon is never going to reach those heights of graphical excellency that you could see from like the next mainline 3D Zelda or the next Xenoblade Chronicles game. We're going to be at least getting a more refined, polished product. And I definitely think with this more powerful hardware, we can expect Pokemon to do a bit more experimenting in terms of what they want to do scale-wise, the art style. Pokemon really likes to experiment with art styles with every new generation, it seems like now. I mean, if you look at Gen 8, Legends Arceus, and Gen 9, they all have very different art styles. So I think that experimenting with that going forward is also going to be really cool. And I think with a more powerful console, they have more opportunities to do more unique art styles. And I definitely think that it's going to make the development process a bit easier, even if they are restricted for time. I mean, just having a more powerful console is going to help. So I actually am of the opinion that Pokemon is going to be more than okay on the Switch 2. I think if the Legends ZA clips we've seen online so far are anything to go off of, the games are going to run well, they're going to look okay, and I think that it's just going to allow Pokemon to really harness the true potential of these games, because they're now on a console that can allow them to do so, and maybe we can get a lot more innovative experiences. And as for much flack as Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl do get, I really do hope that we continue to have mainline Pokemon games developed by people besides Game Freak, And I'm not talking about like the main big generation games. I'm talking like the remakes or spin-off games. Game Freak doesn't need to be working on those. They need to be spending all their time harnessing the power of the Nintendo Switch 2 and giving us awesome experiences. So you know what? Give Ilka the black and white remakes. I don't care. Because the difference with black and white is that it was already good at the start. If they just remake black and white, it's gonna look good. I don't know if it's gonna look good. It might look like crap. But it's gonna play good, and it's gonna be a good game, because black and white is a good game. I also think Pokemon could really benefit from bringing in some other developers to help Game Freak out with these big games. I mean, Monolith Soft already works on several other Nintendo franchises besides their own. I mean, they worked on Breath of the Wild, Animal Crossing, Splatoon. They could work on Pokemon too. I mean, they're amazing developers, and without them, we wouldn't have gotten Breath of the Wild in the way it was, as they were the ones who helped a lot with the world design. So I think if Pokemon is going to continue going in this open world direction, it might be good to get some people who know how to make big, expansive open worlds on the team. Maybe not to develop the game for them, but to just kind of help them along the way and lay out the groundwork and the foundation. Personally speaking, I'm a Pokemon fan, and I'm gonna probably buy every new mainline Pokemon game. Call me a shill, it's absolutely true. But that's because Pokemon means so much to me as a franchise, and I'm honestly super excited for the future of the franchise when it comes to the Switch 2. I'm excited for the Switch 2 in general, despite all the controversy surrounding stuff like the $80 games. I'm someone who loves Pokemon, I'm someone who loves Nintendo, and I'm super excited to see what Game Freak has in store for us on a more powerful console that, in my opinion, can really bring out the vision they have for the future of the franchise. Now, to enjoy more high quality content, check out the videos on screen right now.